Luo, and I will turn it over to her so that she can get to the content that, of course, you all signed up for. So, Susan, on to you.
Thank you, Dr. Tsai. Good evening, everybody. Today, this webinar is very skill-focused. We sent out the survey, and a lot of you mentioned that you hope to see some projects you can apply when you teach ESL to your students. So this is what the content is about for today's webinar. All right, let's start. So before you start any project, I list several things you should consider how to do it. So of course, the first one is time management. Especially right now, most of you are doing online teaching. So how much time you should set aside for your students to finish your project? You need to consider all your outcomes and the student numbers and the students' needs with different level of students, and especially my experience sharing here, because I taught English to international students in an English-speaking environment. And when you are teaching English to your students, you are in a non-English speaking environment. So all those factors, please just write them down, and those are all the factors and variables you should keep in mind before you design or apply some projects. And the next one I want to mention is when you design or apply some projects in your class, you really have to give very clear and specific instructions. What time students need to turn in, what do you want them to do, make it clear, and double check if your students truly understand what you're expecting. So the clear instructions with the online teaching, and we have mentioned many times, it's very important. Just do not assume your students know how to do it. And the last thing, please keep in mind is your culture. Your students, your cultural influence. So what kind of content will be interesting to your students? Because sometimes when we are using projects in America, we acculturate a lot of international students. So American culture is highly focused. But when you do projects in your classroom, keep that in mind. So what kind of content your students would be interested? Maybe you can combine Kazakhstan culture, because sometimes students feel they have more content to share if they're talking about something they're familiar with. Okay, so I want you to remember one website. This is a website. You don't have to write it down because we're going to upload all the webinars online. This webinar, I will mention, this website, I will mention this many times in later introduction, but I think this website did a lot of work for us, and all the materials for English teaching. It's not too much STEM teaching materials here. It's a lot of English teaching materials with different level of students. It's a great website and save us a lot of time, and you can use it for free. Okay, I will start my introduction with speaking. I divide these skills into speaking, listening, reading, writing, and grammar. But you know, as ESL practitioners, you know, we cannot completely separate all the language skills. But each focus, maybe the projects have different focuses in my introduction. So that's why I divide them into speaking. But you will notice that when you do that, you cannot avoid students listening or reading or writing comprehension. So the first project I mentioned before is ask the student to describe short videos. The best videos would be not including a lot of conversations because, you know, with the traditional teaching method, if you provide some videos for students with a lot of conversations, students usually just memorize the lines. So if you provide some short videos without a lot of talking, then you encourage your students to use the content, imagination, to describe the story, to practice their speaking. So they play more active role in this. You see, I can show you an example. So cartoons.
Susan?
Yeah.
We can't see the video. I think what you have to do is you have to unshare that screen and share the video screen.
Okay, unshare.
Or just go, like if you go to share screen, you will be able to click on the video and then that video will share with us.
Okay. Let me see. I'll share. Sharing screen. Stop share.
There you go.
Okay, then
when you try to share again, you'll want to share where the video is.
okay.
Not where the PowerPoint is.
Okay, share screen. Here. Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. See, now that makes much more sense now that we can see the video.
Okay. So we don't have that much time to watch the whole video. I just want to show you what kind of video you can introduce to your students to watch and describe. So that's what I mean, not too many lines in the video, and just encourage your students to describe it and encourage them to use proper nouns. They don't have to use it, he, she. They have the name of Tom and Jerry, ugly duck, or cute duck. Encourage them to use pronouns. It is also better for them to practice their writing. And again, time limits. Set specific time for students to turn in their projects. Okay, the second project is also related to video because a lot of online teaching and YouTube and the social media make it very convenient. So you can assign movies for students to watch. Depends on your student levels. Over the weekend, give them enough time. Then after the weekend, they come back to the classroom. You can ask a student to share, to talk in groups. So you raise questions like, okay, which characters you like or dislike and then why? Or encourage students to change a different ending because everybody is required to watch a movie. Then use some imagination to encourage the students to, think about or come up with a different ending. So that's the two video types of activities I recommend you can use for online teaching speaking. And it's interesting, students usually like it. You will see the results usually it's very meaningful. So the third type I listed here is an informative speech presentation. You can ask your students to do simple presentation. You don't have to be, every time when we mention presentation, we think, oh, that's very academic. It's like a PowerPoint presentation has to be very serious. We can encourage our students to do that and focus on what and how, ask them to practice something they're familiar with. So I don't know if you can see this one. Can you see the screen?
We can see it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So this is just one example when I used with my low-level students as self-introduction in a speaking class. So I asked them to write 3 things about themselves they want us to know, and the fun facts and the pictures. Every student only needs to do 1 slide. Then we use the 10 to 15 minutes, take turns to present. So the students would introduce herself. Okay, so what kind of character she is, what kind of food she liked, and introduce the background of the pictures. That one of the picture was she was in high school with her best friend. So it's very interesting, and the students usually, as peers, they pay attention to this because it's personal. So they know their student, they know their classmates better. Okay. All right. So you can, as ASL teachers, we can provide scaffolding. We can provide help to students design their presentation. I recommend a table, a transition devices table. So I will post all those materials online later. You don't have to do a screenshot or take notes. There's no time for you to take notes here. And you will see, encourage students to use transition devices in their speech. So later, when they are presenting, we can see, or as audience, we can see the clear organizations of each lecture. They see we have addition, we have time word, and time word is very normal to us. We as teachers use it all the time. First, the second, third, and order, space, example. So try to combine academic English and fun English together a little bit. So you encourage your students to write complete sentences. You encourage your students using those transition devices in their speaking. Those skills can be also very helpful with their writing practice later.
Susan, we can't see the chart for transition devices.
Okay. Share screen. Okay, chart is here. Sorry.
That's okay.
Share.
It's the beauty of technology.
Yeah. So
but those
you can see now, right?
Right. It's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we can see, and it will be a really good resource, I think, to upload onto the website so teachers can use that to help their students. I think that's a great resource.
Right. As you can see, it's only 1 page. Somebody has done a great job to summarize for us. We actually use those constantly in our daily speaking and writing. But for the skill-wise, when you're teaching students, you as ASL teachers try to remind students to use them. It's good for their speaking, make their speaking clear. It's also very good for their writing performance.
Great.
Share screen. Go back. The next one is role play drama. I can imagine some of you probably have used this in your speaking class. So students can translate or adapt their local culture stories, but use English lines. This is usually interesting for students to have fun and practice English. But I also encourage you to encourage your students to work in group and write their own transcripts. You don't have to always combine your local culture and transform that in English. You also can encourage your students to do their own transcript and show their imaginations. Okay, so that's one. And as I mentioned, there's a website here. Hopefully, I open that speaking website. Can anybody see this one?
Not yet. Mm-mm. I think you'd have to, yeah, there you go. Stop sharing and then share the,
Okay.
yeah.
Can you see the screen now?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So you see this one is rongchang.com. And on the top, you see home, reading, writing, quizzes, grammar, vocabulary, children English. It's a great website. The only thing I don't like about this website, there are a lot of advertisements. So you have to, or you ignore them or you close them. Okay, so that's the thing, because they provide a lot of free materials. I guess they have to make some money by combining all those advertisements. You see the categories. They have English for kindergarten. They have ESL conversations. They have huge free online. Sometimes I think when we are having too many, sources, maybe we don't know which one to use, but this one, you click anything. Okay, so I tried this before. They have the stories for speaking.
He wakes up. He sees the sun rise. He brushes his teeth. His teeth are white. He puts on his clothes. His shirt is blue. His shoes are yellow. His pants are brown. He goes downstairs. He gets a bowl. He pours milk and cereal. He eats. He gets the newspaper. He reads.
See, this is they have audio with this as well. So you can make your students listen to the video, listen to the audio, and read this one, and ask them to describe another person's morning routines like that. You can tell as ESL teachers, this exercise definitely is reinforce students' usage of the third person simple present usage, and the plurals as well. Shoes are, pants are, because as non-English speakers, we sometimes don't treat shoes and pants as plural because it's one piece. So a lot of activities are short. It's less than a minute. You can use it as a listening material. You can use it as a speaking material. And before, even like morning speaking aloud or talking aloud or reading aloud, you can ask your student to read off the audio to practice their pronunciations. Now, there's so many materials on this website. You can, most of the links, I spend a lot of time to go through this website. I would say 10%, maybe the links are not working, but 90% the links are working, and the materials are appropriately placed in different categories. Right. Let me go back. Okay. So, listening. First project, information gap activity. I have to, where is it? I found a website listed 10 information gap activities. So there are not a lot, but they're very useful. It's clearly explained that. So number one, draw this, ask two students to work in pairs, and one student draw the picture, or one student has a picture, the other student describe the picture, give each other directions to fill in numbers, fill in shapes. So you see the directions for each activity is not very difficult. It's very easy to follow. ESL surveys, ask the students to walk around. Right now, maybe it's not that easy for you to do. To ask each other questions, what's their birthday, what's their favorite color, what's their favorite food. So basically you make your students as a little bit of researchers to ask each other questions. So find something in common. So who likes green? And they can find out, okay, so student A and student B, oh, you both like green. Who likes chocolate ice cream? Then again, you encourage your students to do a lot of listening and speaking. This is information gap, and this website also will be listed there. And yeah, you won't take too much time to go through 10 activities. You can take turns to use them. And each activity, the introduction is very short. You don't have to feel overwhelmed. Okay, that's the purpose here. Okay. The second one, music. Yeah, who doesn't like music, right? For the listening class. Again, I found a nice website. For kiddos, not very long.
He can run faster than a train. She can spin around and make it rain. He can jump higher than a tree. She can turn invisible and get in free. He's a very smooth tall. He can see through walls. She can fly into space. They can watch television in someone else's place. We're amazing superheroes, and we've all got superpowers. We're amazing superheroes, and we've all got superpowers. We're here to save the world. He can swim underwater for an hour. She can shrink and hide inside a flower. He can live for elephants at one time. They all help us out by fighting crime. We're amazing superheroes, and we've all got superpowers. We're amazing superheroes, and we've all got superpowers. We're here to save the world.
Superheroes. So they have the words. You can print the words, different songs for children, many pages. And through this cartoon, you can teach comparative. You can teach some vocabulary, shrink, hide. So yeah, the sources are out there, and I recommend this one, so save you some time when you design activities for your students. All right. Next one, if you teach, if your students are at advanced level, they have learned English for a while, I recommend this activity. You encourage your students to generate their own listening lectures. So first step, you discuss any topic your students are interested in. Give them the freedom. So if students want to talk about online shopping, yeah, they want to talk about the disadvantages or drawbacks of online shopping or online learning or group work, encourage them to do that. Then assign this as assignment, as writing assignment over the weekend with students and editing with students until they get a pretty much complete and good version of listening transcript, and ask them to record their reading. I usually didn't ask them to do video because my students were nervous when they were facing a camera and record them speaking. So basically, I want to lower that anxiety level. So just record their voice when they were talking or they were speaking to a cell phone. Then they design some questions based on the recording, then uploads on the, we have a Canvas website before. Then the rest of us can listen to each other's lectures and answer questions and make comments. I want to show you, I want to show you an example of what my student did. He was a very, very quiet student, almost never spoke in my class. But in this project, you can see he made an effort and he did okay. He did a good job. Okay, let me see. Can I do it?
Group work has some advantages and drawbacks. Let me introduce some advantages at the first. First, group work is good for students to build deep friendships because students have to talk with each other. Also, they can listen to other people's opinions, so they can compare their opinions with others. Moreover, students can improve their speaking skills by having a conversation. On the other hand, group work has some drawbacks. First, not all students have to explain their own ideas to teacher in person. In many cases, one person who is a representative of a group will answer a teacher's question, and it might make some people feel bored. Second, if there are few people who I don't like, it is very difficult to communicate with them, and we might be not able to engage in group work seriously. Third, group work spreads students' focus. Students are likely to chat with their friends during group work, and they can't concentrate on their task. Finally, I think group work is bad for students because sometimes lazy persons are in a group. So I prefer individual work rather than group work. Group work has some advantages.
Okay. So this is one example of my quietest student's work. Less than 2 minutes, he talked about the group work advantages and disadvantages, and in the end, he said he didn't like group work. He preferred work by himself. So this is a way to, encourage your students to design their own listening lectures. So you can combine a lot of language skills in this project. Writing, reading aloud, pronunciations, and when they design questions, they have to reread their writing. So it's basically you practice all the skills through one project. So the last one is dictation. I remember when I was learning English in China, my teacher used a lot of dictation. And there's also a good website for you to do this. You can do it as a warm-up exercise. The same website I found, Rongchang, same example.
He wakes up. He sees the sun rise. He brushes his teeth. His teeth are white. He puts on his clothes. His shirt is blue. His shoes are yellow. His pants are brown. He goes downstairs.
See, the good part about this, using this online source as a dictation activity, you can pause. I know that sometimes it's too fast for your students to write down whatever they're hearing, but you can control that. You can stop that, give enough space, or give them long enough pause for students to write down what they want. So all those websites, there's thousands of those kind of short articles. They have longer articles. The website, the link is here, and take your time, or you don't have to spend too much time you will find the materials you can use for the students. Okay, next time, reading. A lot of ESL teachers complaining it's difficult to teach reading because we don't know what students are thinking, because the reading activity is happening in their mind. If we ask them, okay, so now please read 20 minutes and we come back and discuss whatever we read, let's talk about it. That 20 minutes is quiet, okay? And you don't know, some students might appear to be their reading, but you don't know what they're thinking in their mind. So there are several projects, maybe we can make reading a little bit more loud or active. The number one, for our students in our institutes, this one is very commonly used by many teachers. We usually design book chapters for students to present. So 2 or 3 students work in a group and they are responsible for chapters of a novel. Then at a certain time, week 1, week 2, week 3, with the time management, then students take turns to introduce or lead discussions of this book chapter discussion. Number 2, you can, when we are teaching students in person, we can ask students sit in a circle and read as a book club. So make the reading a little bit more fun and encourage them to read aloud. When you are sitting in a circle, everybody can see each other. So if you're absent, if one of the students is absent-minded, it's very obvious. So this way you force your students to fully engage in a reading activity. The same thing, the same online source. I didn't provide the second one, the same Rongchang online source. They provide good reading materials. You have stories, you have science information, and they also have audio with it. So if you have a long article and you don't like that quietness for the reading activity, and this website, this activity is highly recommended to you. I will show you an example here. It's social media. You will see, you might find some mistakes, but it also can be an activity you use with your students. They can find out the easy, errors or grammar mistakes. You can copy this. You can copy this letters, put on a Word document because there are a lot of advertisements here. You don't want to distract your students. And they have audios with this.
Nowadays, many people are social media fanatics. They are always looking at their mobile phones or tablets and updating their Twitter or Facebook accounts. They are taking pictures of what they eat or taking pictures of themselves, which is called selfies. When people are not oversharing, they are constantly reading or looking at what friends and family members are posting. Social media is becoming addicting. Research shows that most people spend, on average, almost 4 hours a day on social networking sites. That's almost 30 hours a week. While some people need and use social media for work or to stay in touch with friends, other people find that using social media so much causes anxiety and stress. People also tend to use social media as a way to procrastinate. So, just as many religions ask people to abstain or not to have certain foods or drinks for a certain time, many people are taking social media fasts. They are not updating their statuses, and they are also not reading what other people are posting. They choose to stay away from social media for 30 days. Ironically, the details of these fasts can be found on social networking sites all over the internet. The reasons people undertake a fast are varied. Some people want to reconnect with their families or friends by disconnecting from their cell phones. Some people want to be more productive at work. What did some fasters do instead of logging on? Some decided to connect with friends by actually sitting down and having face-to-face conversations. If friends or loved ones were far away, They would call them on the telephone instead. Some even wrote handwritten postcards or letters. The results were mixed. Some people felt that not using social media made them more anxious. Others developed more positive habits like journaling or meditating.
See, this is an example. Usually, if you give this reading material to beginner level students, yeah, it's quiet, but you can use this as a first time reading. You listen and read at the same time. Yeah, it's for the main idea grasp. It's a good start for a reading class. Right. So the last skill I want to talk about is writing and grammar. I put them together. Grammar is everywhere, but for writing especially, it's very important. So the first project I want to mention is encourage your students to apply grammar in real life. So ask them to write about notifications, instruction on commodities, rules for classroom, library, cinema, dorm, hospital. I give you an example. When we were talking about passive voice, and I asked my students to write rules for many places. So you get a result like, instead of changing the sentence from active to passive, oh, I opened the door was opened by me. So this kind of activity to me it is passive. We're practicing passive voice with a passive attitude. But if you encourage your students to apply grammar in the real life situation, so they would write sentences like food and drink are not allowed in the cinema, or smoking is not allowed in the classroom, or littering is not allowed in the classroom, or pets are not allowed in the dorm. I used a lot. Right now, I can only think about this word, but actually, if you give students enough time to apply the grammar in real life, then they can give you some very good examples, and they're understanding how to apply the grammar. And one activity some grammar teachers used was to write instructions for commodities. So how to cook instant noodles, how to make yogurt. So pretend you bring a food jar over here, then you're required to write instructions how to use the cereal or use this yogurt or how to cook this pasta. Then ask your students to write instructions. So number one, cool the water. Number two, the sugar should be added after you boil something for 3 minutes. So including your culture, I use the example instant noodle or pasta. Maybe in Kazakhstan, those kind of food are not very popular. So you can definitely include your own culture in this grammar application. Number two is another project. It's a little bit like listening design project. You push your students as an active learner. You ask them to generate their own grammar workbook. Usually grammar workbook, you see a lot of repetitive exercises. The editors or writers write half of the book and your students write the other half of the book. But for this, students generated a grammar workbook and the students write 100% on this book. They design this grammar workbook and they answer their own questions. So you don't have to, you probably think, so that's kind of boring. I designed this, I already know the answer. No, you can always exchange. So group A students work on group B students' workbook, and the same thing. The B students work on A students, so they can see each other's work. So how to do this? Several easy steps. So number one, you you lecture and you categorize. As a grammar teacher, you still clear some confusions for some grammar points for the students. And you usually, for this kind of activity, just ask students to work in groups. If you have more, they can't get things done. Too much discussion going on and nothing can be done. So 2 students usually be the best. And focus on each category using clear directives. So what does that mean? So if you are teaching verbs, then for this chapter, when students design their own workbook, just to focus on verbs. Maybe articles, determiners, adjectives not be the focus for this category. Then using very clear directives, do not ask students say, oh, design whatever you want. No, give them specific directions because they begin to become a teacher at the first time. So for example, you say, okay, design error corrections, but in sentence level. In sentence level, you don't have to ask them to work, so, oh yeah, you design whatever you want. That usually they will not come up with any ideas. Then what encourage sentence level writing and give them a specific time to turn in their projects. So those are all clear directives. And the freedom here maybe can be limited a little bit if you want to see some result. And the next one is you as a teacher assist them. So when you see clear misunderstanding or not even knowing how to do it, and you can clear this clarification, you can clear their misunderstanding by working with students individually. So some grammar points, certain students struggle with some grammar points, then you spend time on that part. Then after all the students finish their work, if you still have time, you can practice this as a group. So when students saw their own projects on the screen, they were laughing at their own mistakes. They say, oh, that's a very easy mistake. So like they forgot S. So correct errors in 10 sentences. Then when they are reading everything, because when they're reading the project on the screen, they don't treat them like the projects from professors. They were looking at my friends because all their friends' designs, they pay more attention. I found they really pay more attention to their friends' work. So then they find those errors actually easier because they don't assume everything is correct. Then in the end, after you get over everything, then edit. Again, ask them to change all the mistakes on the workbooks and design some book covers. Now you want to know if they like it, you can ask some anonymous reflections, ask them how they truly felt about this. So I did with my, this project with my advanced level students. I asked them to just design, you see on the left, there are 23 outcomes for the grammar, but I asked them to design only 3 chapters, verbs, sentence structures, and nouns. Then those are the covers they designed for their own grammar book. They have names there, very proud of their work. You can see some artistic work and some are just easy 162 grammar workbook. Those are the grammar rules they come up with. Looks nice. They didn't spend a lot of time to produce this. They have to categorize and do this pattern recognition to summarize and present it. Right, some of the questions they design. You can see they have this, because they're not professional teachers, they will say write sentences including all my requirements, very personal. But those are real. The covers, I took photos of their covers. So that's a big project. This project can last 5-7 weeks. Yeah, if you design it well. If you have a lot of students, probably it will take more time. The last one is about a writing project. I don't have very specific writing project for you, but I do encourage you to design your own project, including many writing styles. So each part, you make your writing just writing as a long process, lasting a few weeks. Each week focus on one word. So for example, the basic one is what, why, how. So you can ask students to describe something maybe bothers them or maybe they don't like. Then the next week, ask them to analyze at least 1 or 2 reasons why. And the last week, ask them to write about, okay, so raise some suggestions how to solve the problem. Or you can do role play writing, email writing. You can ask them, the students, to pretend they're international students and they're admission officer, or they're international students or academic advisor. Now you think about your own Kazakhstan culture and design scenarios to encourage students play different roles to practice different writing styles. So one of the projects in our institute was we asked students to write emails to admission officer. So raise questions. Then they pretend they're admission officer to write email back to the students to practice how writing. So process style writing. So how to apply for state. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Or again, the student writes a letter to academic advisor, and they pretend they're academic advisor to write what essay or what email, explain what the program is about, what kind of subjects you're going to learn, and write what essay, description essay back to the students. So again, make it continuous writing project and make it longer and encourage your students to practice many kinds of writing styles, but with a very clear logical connections there. Okay, this is it. And if you have any questions, please, you can type it in the chat box. And remember, we still have this website you designed. And if you have any ideas, good projects, please contact us, and we will be very glad to post them and share with everyone. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Susan.
Thank you.
It was a wonderful presentation, as usual.
Thank you.
And I think that there were really practical and pragmatic pieces of information that everybody could take. We will wait a few minutes and see if there are any questions that get typed into the chat. I especially like the fact that you included some listening resources and you use them in multiple places. So you can use a listening resource as a dictation activity. You can use a listening resource where the text is there to help the students increase their reading ability by having them listen as they read the text. There's a lot of second language research currently that really reinforces this listening while you read as a real improvement on fluency, not only in first language. That's why in elementary schools, many times teachers are reading to students, right? Not only for first language, but specifically also for second language, because it helps to kind of cement the pronunciation and the sounds of the language in the student's mind, because they're having that reinforced as they listen.
Right.
So, yeah.
Exactly. And personally, I just don't like that quietness when I'm teaching reading. I know I should be more tolerant. I should give ESL students more time to react, but I want I just don't know what they're thinking in their mind. So I like to using music or voice so I can make sure, okay, are you following that? Are you following the reading part, the listening part? And that website is a very good website. And it's free for you to use. You can download things for free. They don't charge anything. Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you, guys.
How many lessons a week? How many lessons a week do you spend with the beginners level students?
For each skill, 4 hours a week. For each skill. If I taught listening, then yeah, I met them 4 times a week for 7 weeks for one level.
Right.
Yeah. But students, they have different instructors. They have 6 hours a day. Yeah, that's intensive.
Yes. We will, the next question is, when will we meet next time? We will meet at the same time next week, right? So Mary, you're presenting next week, and you're going to be talking about how to balance your online classroom. So have enough regular repetition and guideposts for students so that they don't get terrified by the Google Classroom, but at the same time having enough engagement and interest so that they can remain interested in your class, right? So I think that'll be a very good webinar. Yes, every Thursday at 7. And I put into the chat for everyone the website that we've created. Well, we created the website, but the teachers created all the amazing materials that are on the website. And it's hopefully easy to remember. It's kzstemenglish.org. So hopefully you can go to that website and take a look. We have tried, although I'm sure there are mistakes, but we have tried to have everything translated to Kazakh and to Russian. Well, most things translated to Kazakh and Russian. So hopefully it will be easier for you to navigate that website and to use it. But those materials were created by your colleagues in this webinar and your colleagues all over the country. We worked with 5 different cities, and so teachers from all over the country have worked together to develop those materials. And we're so proud of those teachers, and we hope that they are proud of themselves because we're very impressed with what they were able to accomplish. And we will see you again next. I don't see any more questions coming. So I guess we will see you again next Thursday. And we thank you all very, very much for joining us again.
Have a good night.